Brestin is well known to a lot of you, I know. Her book, Friendships of Women, that was called, is a book that Moira really treasures and sold over 1 million copies. She wrote another book with Kathy Tricoli, Falling in Love with Jesus.
Right.
And that sold about 500,000 copies. And she's done a number of radio and television appearances over the years and has a real reputation as a public speaker. Tens of thousands of women every year hear her speak. Her latest book is called Idle Lies, How Jesus is Setting Us Free from Idle Lies, Facing the Truth About Our Deepest Desires. Now, Dee, I read the whole book. I know what it's about, but you need to tell me why. Why did you write this book, Idle Lies, and why did you name it Idle Lies?
Well, the truths in Idle Lies have so changed my life. And I tested it on a Bible study blog I have on my website. And mature Christian women were changing. There's a fresh wind blowing about this subject. Idols of the heart is something that Ezekiel talks about. And they're hidden. You can't see them. All that you can see is the bad fruit that emanates from them. All I knew was that I was having trouble keeping a good administrative assistant.
This is how it began. Like right at the beginning of the book, you talk about this, and you're very transparent about yourself. But you say in the book that you were totally unaware of the problem that you had.
Totally. I thought it was always her fault. I could not understand. I thought, this is a great job. It's interesting, it's ministry, you get to travel, you get to meet people. I thought I paid her pretty well. I'm a great boss. I had no idea that it was my fault, but when my fourth administrative assistant within a 10-year period turned in her resignation, I was lamenting to my friend Jan Silvius. And I thought I might get a little sympathy, but instead she said, "Seems to be a pattern in your life, Dee." And I thought, what? You're saying, Jan, that this is my fault? That was the first red flag that maybe there was something wrong in my heart.
And how did you identify what it was that was wrong?
Well, I didn't right away. God comes to me gently. I'd been listening to sermons from Redeemer.com, a lot of Tim Keller, but I listened to a sermon from a man named Jim the next week. It was called Models of Manipulation. And I thought, this is interesting. I know some manipulative people. You know, it's like when you look in a mirror, you think you look okay, and then somebody hands you a photograph and you say, no, I'll never wear that again. I've got to get my hair cut, because often we can't see our own hearts. So I'm listening to this sermon, and it's about Martha of Bethany, and we know that story, Mary and Martha. Well, Jim said that Martha was a manipulator, and that two symptoms of manipulation are trying to make someone feel guilty, and then you give an inappropriate order. Martha says, "Lord, don't you care? You've left me to do all the work by myself," in that famous story. And then she gives an inappropriate order, because it's not appropriate to order Jesus around. She said, "Tell her to help me." And as I began to listen to this sermon, I thought, you know, I often use guilt with my administrative assistant, and I'll make sideways comments, because to me it seemed almost kinder to be sideways than to directly confront what was concerning me. If she was late, I might say, "Everything okay at home?" That made me look sympathetic, but I wanted to know why she was late. And if she said, "Everything's great," then I'd be really angry. And another red flag is body language, that you have idols of the heart. If you're tense, if you feel that stiff neck, butterflies in your stomach, those are all symptoms of idols of the heart. And I began to see myself, and I began to see that I really did do these things. Now, Jim was saying that Martha of Bethany, and there's three main heart idols, and I credit Tim Keller with this.
Yeah, the third one is security. Another one is, tell me the other two.
Okay, comfort.
Right.
And affirmation and control power.
Right, control. Now, you said that you had a control issue.
I do have a control issue.
You do have a control issue.
I still have a control issue because, like John Calvin says, our hearts are idol-making factories. I have seen my idol, and it is whittled down, but it has a way of regenerating, and I have to be continually aware of it. But I am aware. I mean, I have a daughter who says, Mom, you are so much better. I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but I am so much better. I am so much less controlling.
Now, when you talk about control as an idol, some people would say, well, this is just a characteristic.
Right.
An idol, by definition, is something you worship, something that
Right.
takes the place of Almighty God.
Right.
Is that a bit of an overstatement to call it an idol?
No, because often we miss idolatry because we think of it as visible things. We think, okay, I'm not worshiping statues. I don't think I'm even worshiping visible things like money or television, so I'm not an idolater. But these are desires that God gives us that He can fulfill. He wants to be our comfort. He wants to be our affirmation. He wants to give us the feeling that life has not gone out of control. But because we do not trust Him to meet these needs, we find our own way of meeting these needs. I did not trust God to be in control of my ministry or in control of my administrative assistant. With comfort, He wants to be the God of all comfort, and we may say He is our comfort, but in reality we may run to food or to Facebook or to friendship. Good things, but when we make them ultimate things, they become idols. Because the usual way of attacking a sin, Jim, is to attack the symptom. Let's say that you eat too much, you spend too much, you want to get out of bed in the morning, but you sleep too much. Usually what you say, okay, I'll get a better diet, better budget, better alarm clock. But because you have not attacked the root problem, which is not trusting God to be your comfort, when you restrict that comfort idol, he will cry out until he wins. What you need to do is say, okay, what is the root problem? I am not running to the God of all comfort. I am not trusting Him. I am doing other things to try to meet those needs.
So, a woman's listening to you right now and say, well, that sounds good, but what do I do tomorrow morning when, these comfort issues confront me again? I mean, you just don't flip a switch and walk away from it, do you?
Absolutely. Idols cannot be removed. They can only be replaced. You have to trust God to meet that. I'll tell you, for example, what happened with my story. I needed another administrative assistant, and I began to look at my son-in-law, David, and my daughter was scared. She said, Mom, you don't have a very good record. But I hired David, and I really thought, I'm seeing it now. I will not manipulate. I will be direct. I'm going to walk in repentance. But I also had to trust that God could work in David's life. And, I'm given tests by that all the time. We went along really great for the first year and a half. And then he came up to my cabin in Wisconsin, and the deal was he was going to work half-time and he was going to vacation half-time. But I thought he was doing more vacationing than working. And I was beginning to get tense and get butterflies, and I said, David, we need to talk about this. And we set up a meeting. And I was so busy all that night and the next morning going over in my mind why I was right and why he was wrong that I didn't have time to get into the Word. And he knocked on my door, and I remembered I hadn't been in the Word. I'd been going through a devotional by Paul Tripp called Whiter Than Snow, and I said, David, could you just give me a little time and come back? He said, sure. Well, I opened up this devotional by Paul Tripp, and it says, I am so quick to justify myself, to go over why I am right and why the other is wrong. Create in me a clean heart, O God. And I thought, there it is. It's the control idol. So what I'm saying, Jim, is it isn't enough to see it. You need to trust that God will meet you. So David came in, and I'm in tears at this time because God has spoken to me. And I said, David, I want you to see what I just read. And he read it, and he said, oh, I'm the same way. I've been doing it all night. What we have to do is trust God. And so we sat down and we had the kind of conversation that Christians are supposed to have about ministry. No sideways, no manipulation, no guilt, just honesty, because we were going to trust that God was going to work in this situation. I have testimonies, and they're in my video curriculum, from women. Like one woman said that she knew she had a food problem. She knew she overate, but she was afraid, would God just let her sit in her pain if she didn't have this big amount of snacks every night? And she said it wasn't a quick fix, but what she did is she began, in faith, to stop eating and watching television and to start reading spiritually edifying books and to get in the Word. And she said it wasn't a quick fix, but slowly God began to meet her and be the comfort that overeating could not be.
Our time has flown by here, Dee. I think one of the most powerful points you make is near the end of the book when you talk about how an affection cannot be removed except by another affection.
Yes.
And you use some examples from your own personal dating life with Jack, and then
and
then Steve,
Yes.
who you married,
Right.
who unfortunately died a few years ago after 39 years of marriage.
Yes.
I'm sorry to hear that, but this is a very fascinating book. It's called Idle Lives: Facing the Truth About Our Deepest Desires, and it's a book that is just hot off the press. And if you have any history of reading Dee's stuff, you're going to want to get this for sure. I read it in one sitting. There's a great section in the book of Bible studies, useful for discussing with your small group or whatever. And it's just a terrific read, published by Worthy.
And we have a free video curriculum.
Yeah, and how do people access that?
It's going to be on my website starting Wednesday, and the book gives instructions on how to get it. There's also going to be an app.
Well, there you go, an app. There you go. Who knew? One day we were talking about apps and Facebooks and discussions about how God works in our lives.